So today we are talking to Cindy Perazzo, the Provincial Coordinator for the Lay Carmelite Office of the PCM province. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be here. Thank you.
I guess, first of all, tell us a little bit about what that is, Provincial Coordinator for the Lay Carmelite Office.
Well, sure. So the provincial coordinator oversees pretty much everything at the Lay Carmelite office. And I say that because our structure, our like org chart, so to speak, actually does list a provincial delegate. And for a number of years, normally that has been a friar, although it doesn't have to be, it could be a lay person. But normally for us, it has been a friar. And at one point, I believe it was not Father Carl, but Father Bill Harry was the provincial at the time, decided, I think Father Peter McGarry retired. And he said, well, I don't think we're going to replace that position with the friar. So Cindy, you're it. So I report as the provincial coordinator, I report directly to the prior provincial. He's my direct superior. As far as the position is concerned, we have 2,500, give or take, like Carmelites, 162 communities. I think it's about 30 regions and 5 areas. So we have a lot of layers of like Carmelites, and I need to make sure that things are running smoothly.
I know that to do that and oversee that was just recently at the convocation. So you've got a staff within your office, although you are a distributed office.
That's right.
And then you also have regionals across. Can you explain a little bit about that structure?
Sure, sure. Yes, we did have I think it was a really successful convocation. Ken, you were there.
Mhm.
Um, it was attended by about 250 like Carmelites and friends, and it was a really good experience. But in order to put something like that on required a really big team of people. And I've been very fortunate. It's always been something I've wanted to do or felt called to do, was to work with teams, because I'm one person now in the office since Sister Libby retired. And I have to make a lot of decisions, but I also like to make decisions. I like to hear the other person's perspective on things. I mean, the Lay Carmelites are so vast. We have life experience, job experience, educational backgrounds, men, women, we all ages, 18 to 100. So there's a lot of good perspective there, and I'd like to, as a leader, I like to utilize that for sure. So we do have a structure. Um, there is the provincial coordinator, which is me. Then Sherry Coriotto is our office manager. And then now we've recently brought on an assistant provincial coordinator, Nancy Bushman. So she started with us in July. So that's the staff, but we have all kinds of people that are working kind of on the periphery, on the sidelines, so to speak. Um, and we couldn't do this job without them. I really depend on them and really value them. So let's just start at the community level. So I said we had 162 communities. They all have a structure. There's a director, a formation director, a council, structured very much like the Friars structure their infrastructure, I guess I'll say. So there's the community level. Now we have those 162 communities within about 30 regions, and we have regional leadership. We have regional coordinators and regional formation coordinators. And some of the larger regions have what we call a regional council as well. They're responsible for the regional teams are responsible for days of planning and instituting days of recollection, weekend retreats. We've even with today's day and age, we've even gone with virtual retreats, virtual days of recollection. They're in charge of that. They're also in charge now in recent years. This is the second term we're doing this since Sister Libby did retire. We knew that we were not going to get another sister. to help us out with visitations. Sister Libby, I don't know if you know, Sister Libby was traveling like 8 months out of the year. I mean, she loved it. She thrived on it. But we don't have any lay people that are really able or willing to do that. And we knew that we couldn't depend on the sisters any longer, just like we couldn't depend on the friars to supply us with a provincial delegate. So I brought a team of 5 people together. We call them when I first brought them together, we called them the Provincial Visitation Task Force. And we sat down, we had a number of meetings over the course of 6, 8, 9 months. What are we going to do? The provincial visitations are crucial to keeping everybody on the same page, that we're all doing our formation the way we need to do it, that we're all holding elections the way we need to and when we need to. So how are we going to manage this? So sat down with these 5 people on the task force, and we just discussed it. What can we do? And we came up with the solution that the regional teams would actually be the ones that conduct the official provincial visitations, which happen once every 3 years. So we're in the second term of doing provincial visitations. There is paperwork, the directors and the councils have to fill out what's going on in the community. They actually make a physical visitation. Most of them are physical, although we have an open region that is a region that's all over North America, Canada, and the United States, that are spread out geographically. So some of those visitations are done via Zoom, but for the most part, we do in-person visitations. And we have an area group. We call them the area coordinators, provincial area coordinators. Now, this just happens to be that task force that I was talking about earlier. They all signed on to continue. I'm so grateful for that, because these are really our most experienced Lay Carmelites, both in what they've done in leadership for their communities and for their regions, and for their knowledge and experience and everything that's Carmel. So they oversee all of the regional teams. We've broken them up geographically. I think each of the areas has about 34 communities in it, 34 to 35 communities. So doing that is going very well. And I think one reason it's going very well is because those regional teams we have the ability to follow up. They're much closer geographically to the communities, where Sister Libby would make a visitation, wonderful visitations, giving all of her wealth of advice and experience to the communities. But there was very little time for follow-up after that. And what we're experiencing now, we see things coming up. I meet with this group of 5 area coordinators about every quarter. And what we're noticing is that we're noticing things, that we didn't notice before. And, this last meeting we had, one of the coordinators was just kind of discouraged, thinking that things weren't going well. And I said, no, things are going exactly the way we want them to go, because we're following up, and we're finding out what's really going on with the communities. So I think, in my mind, it's a system that really puts our finger on the pulse of the communities a lot better. So.
And that's a good point, because I was going to bring up what you mentioned in there, that you are international, United States and Canada, and in 160 communities, 2,500 members, and that's a lot to keep track of, and maintain that everybody is receiving the resources that they need, which I want to go over with you a little bit here in a second, of the resources that the office offers to kind of to take care of that part, but that you do overall manage basically North America.
Right.
That's a vast, huge area in 2 countries.
Yes, it
And that
is.
you found a good way to manage and streamline that through teamwork.
Yeah, couldn't do it without the team,
Yeah.
for sure. More than one team.
Yeah.
So
Maybe a little bit about the office, what it offers, as far as resources, and really what it provides out to the members,
sure.
that piece.
So the office, according to our statutes, the Lay Carmelite office is in charge of keeping track of all of our members. Of course, we depend on the communities to inform us of changes, such as people that have been received into the order, people that are in phase one, preparation for reception, phase two, preparation for temporary profession, when they've made their final profession, when we've had a Lay Carmelite pass on. So we need all of that information to keep our database updated. And we're going to offer an online form to fill out so
Mhm.
that they don't have to put it in the mail. They'll be able to fill that out online. It'll go into, I don't know, Doug Bushman is the whiz at all of this, so he's figured it out. But the Lay Carmelite office has kind of finally jumped into the 21st century. And I think that's the way we'll be going in the future for sure.
Also, on as far as resources from a Carmelite spirituality and faith perspective, the spiritual component
Yeah,
of formation, the resources, what resources do you now have available?
yeah,
I know they're all in print, but online
right.
for members.
So yeah, I mean, if we're going to be like Carmelites, we have to be authentically like Carmelites, correct?
Mhm.
Carmelites,
Mhm.
Carmelites.
Mhm.
That's always been very important to me because it's a beautiful charism. It's a wonderful 800 plus year old history. Um, Lots of structure, lots of tradition, and we need to know that. I mean, we're the bulk of the Carmelites in our province,
Mhm.
2,500. That's a lot, and so I'm sure the First Order and the Second Order would like to see us um, Carmelite in an authentic way.
Yes.
So we have a very, I guess I'll call it stringent formation program. It's a total of 6 years to
Mhm.
become a fully professed Lay Carmelite. We have a
Mhm.
year of phase one formation, which is preparation for reception into the order. And it's all based 12 lessons. It's all basic information on Carmelite history, our spirituality, and our structure. And once they complete that and everybody agrees that this is a good fit, then our candidates are received into the order. From there, they go into what we call phase two, and that's further study. It's 24 months. Right, currently, we're using a book and a formation formator's guide, and we're going through all of that history, spirituality, structure in a deeper level, in a deeper way.
Mhm.
And once those 24 months are completed, again, we have a decision to make between the council and the candidate. And if all goes well, then our candidates are making their temporary profession, and that is for a period of 3 years. 3 years after that, before final profession, they're basically living the life of a Lay Carmelite. They're living the life of the promises they've made as a Lay Carmelites according to their state of life. And then if all goes well, they make their final profession. Now, as far as the resources you were talking about, we are generating that into online services, I guess I'll say. We have phase one candidate workbook and a formator's guide. Phase two, we have a book, as I said, and a formator's guide. And then phase three, there's not phase three, but ongoing formation. There's no special book for that or even study for that. As I said, we're just living the life of a Carmelite, a Lay Carmelite. All of those things are available at the office. They can purchase them if they want a hard copy, but
Mhm.
most of them, and we're gearing toward within the next 2 years, we'll have everything online, so that they can even ebooks or PDFs, that kind of thing. They can decide what they want to do, and we already have people that are deciding all, they want them in all different ways. So, and that's fine. We're offering that. Another thing we've added this year, which I'm really proud of, is that the order for a long time has really encouraged all Carmelites to get back into Lectio Divina.
Mhm.
It's a practice, an ancient practice that was recommended and then it wasn't recommended, and so now the church and the Carmelites, are really encouraging us to do that. within our meeting agenda, we always offered a very small amount of time for Lectio Divina, not nearly enough. It was 15 minutes. And if you're familiar with Lectio at all, you know that that's not enough time to sit with Scripture, listen for God to speak to us through His Word. Um, I find that to be the most important element of our meetings. And we were only giving it out of 2.5 hours, we were only giving it 15 minutes. So we revised again, I brought another team in, asked another team to join me, and we created a Lectio Divina handbook, which we're very proud of. We finished it this summer. It's online. It can be also purchased in like a wire-bound, spiral-bound copy or a PDF, three-hole punch to put in a binder. And it's online as an ebook or a PDF. I'm not sure, maybe both. But it's a good, number one, it gives people, I think before we had this handbook, it was assumed that we had to do Lectio one particular way or it was no good. Well, that's not the truth. You know, there are lots of ways to pray with Scripture. And so the handbook was number one, a resource for them to find out about different ways. And you know, we have a resource list in the back that gives them further information to read, different articles and um, different books on Lectio, and we recommend those. And we encourage the community leadership to really um, put that at the forefront of the meeting. You know, we pray Liturgy of the Hours, and then normally we go right into Lectio. We decided that even though it's still not enough time, we would double the time for Lectio in the community once a month to 30 minutes. And I think we're more comfortable with that. Of course, we'd like to do more, but really, to pray Lectio once a month in the community meeting is just the start. What we're hoping is that will encourage individuals to pray Lectio every day at some point, every day of their life. And in listening and in that quiet prayer time, that's just an extension of all the other of the charism. It really is. So it's working out. I mean, it's new. We've gotten a lot of comments on it, and I'm proud of that accomplishment that we were able to do as as a group. So
Wonderful, wonderful. And that is, as I mentioned, you walk through, there's obviously you have to have this big administrative structure in place,
right.
but that the focus always comes back down to promoting Carmel, encouraging Carmel, and supporting that growth in Carmel
Yes,
through the first two pillars, prayer and community
that's right.
of the Carmelite order. So the resources that you have for that, and that community that everybody has, even though you're such a large distributed group,
Mhm.
that you found a way to kind of keep that community component that is such a strong pillar of the order. So now we've kind of heard how everybody else does. So now I guess what I'd like to hear is, how did you come to Carmel and some of your journey to ending up where you are today?
Oh gosh. Okay. So kind of interesting, I think, but I actually stumbled on the Carmelites 3 different times in younger years. The first was when in the early 70s, I was actually still in high school. And in my hometown, my parish of St. Mary's, we had a visiting priest that came pretty frequently. He was a chaplain. We're about 10 miles out of Travis Air Force Base, and he was an Air Force chaplain. His name was Father Bill Travers. And as it turns out, he was a friar of St. Elias Province. Well, I had no clue I don't know that he ever wore, I mean, that was a long time ago, so I have no idea if he wore a habit. But what I did know is that he was this huge personality with an equally huge booming voice, and he liked to tell jokes. and he made an impression on me for sure. I really liked him. The parish really liked him. I don't know how long he stayed. I know I had left home shortly, after high school, and when I would come back to visit, eventually he had disappeared. He was gone. He'd been reassigned, I'm sure. But that was my first. He was a Carmelite. So fast forward 10 years, and I found myself in Houston, Texas. My husband Bob had been transferred there for a job opportunity. And I'll be honest, from a small town girl in Northern California to the city of Houston in my 20s, I felt like I was on the moon. I really did. It was just so different. Which different is not bad, but I was homesick, I guess I'll say. Well, we
Mhm.
actually landed softly in St. Albert's Parish, which, as it turns out, is no longer served by our Carmelites, but it was at the time. Father Stan Cromer, yeah, Father Stan Cromer was the pastor. Again, I doubt I had any idea that this was a Carmelite served parish, but it was a comfortable, soft place to land for me. Um, my son Daniel was born in Houston. He was baptized at St. Albert's. As much as I could as a brand new mom, we were in parish life to a certain extent. But it was a good, comfortable time for me. And and then fast forward again, I'll say 1993, we were back in Northern California. We got to come back home. So we ended up settling in Fairfield, California. Now there were and there still are two parishes in Fairfield. Holy Spirit, which is the more traditional parish of a diocesan parish, and Our Lady of Mount Carmel. So Holy Spirit, I say traditional, what I mean is there was like a traditional worship space. There were the two or three priests that were there. The masses were all very what I was used to in a traditional manner. And Our Lady of Mount Carmel met in a geodesic dome with folding chairs. So it was so different. Now, I was being a brat, but I said, when we first moved, we first got settled, I said to Bob, I said, I think we should go to the real church. We should go to Holy Spirit. And so the first Sunday we were there, we did. We went to Holy Spirit. It was fine. There was nothing actually remarkable about it, but it was what I was used to. So that was the first Sunday. The second Sunday, I just thought, and I said, we really need to be fair. Let's go ahead and go to Mount Carmel and see what we think. So we did. And Ken, I'll tell you, I walked into that dome with the folding chairs and a huge crowd of people. And it was like, it wasn't a like hit you in the face kind of thing, but it was like a comfortable exhale. Gosh, I feel like this is home kind of space. And that's when eventually that was in 1993, and very shortly after I found out, yes, this was a Carmelite parish, and yes, this was a very Carmelite parish. Our pastor at the time, Father Kevin, was, he just had a real um, good spirit about him. The charism was very important to him. He actually started a Lay Carmelite community there with a lay woman, Sherry Bauer, who's a great friend of mine still. And so shortly after we arrived in Mount Carmel, I joined the choir, became a Eucharistic minister, all the things. And I realized that there was a Lay Carmelite community there. Well, I saw it in the bulletin and I thought, oh, what is that? So I kind of invited myself to go to one of their meetings, and it's kind of like the rest is history. I knew I belonged there. I started initial formation, and I was received in 1990 into the order in 1995. I made my profession. Back then it was just 1 year, 2 years, and then you were just professed. So I made my profession in 1997. very shortly after that, I was asked to be the formation director. So I served in that capacity for a year or two. And then there was an election and I was elected director of the community. So I had 2 terms as director. And at Mount Carmel, we had a lot of visitors. We had a lot of friars come to visit us. Met a number of friars that I still know today and value. Um, so toward the end of my term as director, I got a call from our provincial delegate. We still had a provincial delegate at the time, Father John Benedict Weber. And I had met him at Mount Carmel, and he called and said, we're going to start a region up up above San Francisco, Northern California, Northern Nevada. Would you be interested in helping establish that? And I said, oh, sure. Yeah, I'm getting ready to end my term as director. I think I would have the time to do that. And we chatted a little bit. And then just as he was hanging up, he said, oh, and by the way, we're having an interprovincial Lay Carmelite Commission meeting in Darien in 2 weeks. Do you think you can fly out for that? And I said, oh, well, sure, I think I can do that. So I was the regional coordinator for the Northern Nevada, Northern California region for 2 terms. I think it was 6 years. But I was on that commission for a total of 12 years, 2003 to 2015, I think it was. And I needed a break. It was 12 years of, I mean, it's an advisory board, the Interprovincial Commission, but we do more than advise. I mean, it's really a working commission. So it's between the 2 provinces, of course, St. Elias and the PCM. So I told Sister Mary, I need a break. I've been on this for 12 years and it's time for somebody else to have a turn. So I stepped aside from that. And I had a whole year of a break. And I got a call from Father Bill Harry, who was the prior provincial at the time. And he said, I'm going to be in Fairfield. My council and I think they were having a council meeting or something in Fairfield. He says, I'm going to be in Fairfield. It was Thanksgiving week. He says, do you think we could meet? And I thought, uh-oh. What now? No, my first thought was actually, uh-oh, what have I done? So because the prior provincial doesn't just call Lake Carmelite and want to meet, right? So I said, sure. So he came up with the time, met with him at the parish office, and he says, Sister Mary's retiring. I was wondering if you would be interested in thinking about becoming the provincial coordinator. And he says, I know you won't move to Darien, but I think we could probably work something out remotely where you could work from a home office and come to Darien maybe 4 times a year, be with the staff. It wasn't Sherry at the time, but we had another office manager. And why don't you think about it? Go home, talk to Bob, see if that might work for you. And I really didn't need to think about it too much. And Bob's always been very generous with my activities with the Lay Carmelites. So I said yes. And that was we actually met the fall of 2016. Sister Mary retired in 2017. But I think my first day was April the 3rd of 2017. And because Father Bill didn't want to hire me on April Fool's Day. So he says, okay, we'll make it the 3rd. So that was like almost 9 years ago. And here I am.
And you've seen well, the office of the Lay Carmelites, but the Lay Carmelite structure go through quite the transition from Sister Mary and Father JB, as you mentioned, being kind of running that office and overseeing it, to now, as you mentioned, it's really the Lay Carmelites are really running it completely and fully and overseeing the entire thing. So that was a pretty significant transition that you've successfully brought the office through.
Well, I have a lot of support. I've always felt both prior provincials that I've worked for
Mhm,
have trusted me. I
mhm,
value, I mean, that's humbling, and that I value that, and I value their opinion. I think they know if I come across something that I feel I shouldn't or I can't handle, I know that they are always there to listen to me and give me advice.
Mhm.
Um, and but yet they've left me to administer the Lay Carmelites, in along with the help of other people
Mhm.
to um, to guide them. That is,
Mhm.
to me, that's huge. I'm the first lay person to have that kind of a responsibility in our province,
Mhm.
anyway.
Mhm.
And I'm finding as I'm doing a little more international work, we were in Portugal in February for an international Lay Carmelite meeting. I'm finding
Mhm.
that our province, anyway, is really kind of like almost like cutting edge, if you want to put it that way, where
Mhm.
the Lay Carmelites are trusted. We feel very much valued by the first and second order. Um,
Mhm.
and I think it's a good partnership. It could be a good partnership for the future too.
Mhm. If you, as you, run into people, be it at church or out and about, who aren't Lay Carmelites, maybe even haven't been introduced to Carmel, maybe have, or just kind of on the skirts of Carmel. Um, what do you, if someone's seeking something more, what would you say to them about, well, to determine if Lay Carmel would be what they might be seeking?
Right. Well, I find, and I have sensed this for a long time, there's a general seeking within the church, and even with, not within the church, but there's just this general seeking for something. And of course, we know that something is God, but they haven't. A lot of these people that are looking, they haven't found anything that's quite a good fit. Now, there are
Mhm.
lots of spiritualities in the church, and they're all good, I'm sure. Um, but they're not all Carmelite. They're all very different from each other, and we're all individuals.
Mhm.
So it's very important that I think it's very important to. I'm not so sure we actually find where we're supposed to be, but I think we're led if we're willing to listen. We're led to where we're
Mhm.
supposed to be. So I think that's would be one of my pieces of advice that I would give is to look at yourself, look at the various spiritualities. I mean, there's lots of lay organizations. I mean, all of the orders have either
Mhm.
oblates or lay people,
Mhm.
organizations. So, and they all have, and we all have different charisms. So do a little research.
Mhm.
Look at what the different orders and different organizations offer a lay person, and then think about yourself and how your personality and the way you express your spirituality, and how important is that in your life, and then start looking. I always recommend our website. We have a lot of basic information on the website. um,
Mhm.
I will always recommend that they put them in touch with a regional coordinator in their area and see if we can find a
Mhm.
community that they could visit. um,
Mhm.
and that's also why we have the long 6-year program, because it's important to know that we want you to be, I'm always saying this, we want you to be where God wants you to be, or it's not going to
Mhm.
work, right?
That
Yeah.
was so much of Carmel came out in there. They
No.
should listen to where God is trying to lead them. I think that's kind of the core I hear from everyone, and that you're embodying in Lay Carmel is that listening component. And I heard that several times in that
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
what you just said.
a lot of us, even like Carmelites, we want to talk to God more than we want to listen to God, right? Yeah. And he's so patient with it. God's so patient with us. Oh, yes, yes. But it's important to listen. It
Yes.
really is.
Um, you've already talked about kind of several things that are in the works, and
Mhm.
as you kind of
Yeah.
um, move the ministry, I guess, into the 21st century, we'll call it,
Yeah.
for how you keep this large family connected. What are any initiatives that are on the horizon that you can discuss?
Sure. So the past several years, a couple of years, I guess I would say, we had two big things. We were completing and asking for approval of our interprovincial statutes so that we could recreate our Carmel's Call, which is a manual, kind of an all-encompassing manual that has the Rule of St. Albert, the international rule, the interprovincial statutes, and then all of the back matter, I'll call it, all of the important, resource matter, um, ceremonies and the like. So we completed that finally, got those printed out and they're available. We have a 12th edition now of Carmel's Call. And then the convocation, the one that we had this past summer, that's a huge undertaking. We had wonderful Doug and Nancy Bushman are wonderful on-site coordinators. Couldn't have done it without them. But it was a huge job, finding the speakers, organizing all of that, planning workshops, finding a place to have it. We had it at Catholic University of America, which was a wonderful place to have our group there. A good experience for some of us that hadn't been to college in a long, long time, right? So we've got that done. Now, we met in the fall as a group, the Interprovincial Commission met in the fall. We met at Niagara, which was a beautiful place for us to meet. And we made a list of the things that we thought we would need to tackle, because these types of things we do interprovincially. We don't just do them with the PCM and the SEL. We do them together in partnership. So we've known for a long time that our manuals needed some kind of updating because our statutes changed, but the manuals that we're using now have the old references to them. So we know, and we had a few little cheat sheets that we made up, some of our members made up and passed them along to the office that could tell people, where this is in the new statutes, but that was like a stopgap, right? So we said, okay, we need to update our community manuals. We need to update our phase 1 material, our phase 2 material, and the community manual. So those are the 3 manuals. And we decided that the first priority would be our phase 2 program, because the book we're currently using is out of print. So we have about a 3-year supply of the book that we're using. So we're on a little bit of a time crunch there, and we knew we needed to put that as our top priority. So since that meeting it was in September. Since that meeting in September, we formed some subcommittees for each of those 3 components. And I sent out an email very recently to people that we've known and that names came up at the meeting, wondering if they'd be willing to help with these manuals, help us update these manuals. And we've gotten a good response so far. So by the first of the year, the first of 2026, these 3 subcommittees will start meeting, we'll start planning. The community manual, the phase 1 manual, we're basically going to leave those as they are, with the exception of the updates. The phase 2 program is probably going to be completely different. So that's the subcommittee that will take a good 2 years to complete, because we haven't decided exactly what way we want to go yet. But that'll all come in due time, right? So that's going to be a huge endeavor for the next couple of years. Of course, we have another convocation on the horizon. I think we've decided to have our next convocation in 2028. We don't have any other details, but we know we want to get back into the schedule of every 3-ish years, 3 to 4 years. We had a lot longer block between 2019 and 2025 because of the pandemic. So we had to put that off. But it's important. We feel like it's important to have our lay Carmelites meet at a much bigger level than just the community. You really to get that true sense of you get that true sense of belonging to an order when you get
Mhm.
together with a larger group, whether it's a regional retreat or something like Into the Land of Carmel,
Mhm.
or a convocation. Those things. There's so
Right.
much that's being offered now. Webinars,
Mhm.
these events. A lot of them are virtual. If you can't make it to, Washington D.C., then you can watch it, on a website. So there's a
Mhm.
lot that's being offered now. So I would say those two things are probably going to keep us fairly busy for a while. I'm sure there'll be other things coming on the horizon too. The
Right.
things I know of right now.
I guess the only other thing, because I think that covers the ministry pretty well, um, but I always like to ask everyone, um, how do you feel that the Carmelite spirituality, the pillars of Carmel, being a Lay Carmelite, how does that serve you, and how do you apply that and live that? Now it's 800-year-old tradition, but it still actively applies here in the 21st century. How do you live that or experience that?
So hopefully I don't get too emotional about that question because it's very important. It's very
Hmm.
important to me. Um, I will have to say that even though I didn't realize I was a Carmelite all for my whole life, even as a remembering as a child, I was always kind of had that contemplative kind of stance. I was a little bit on the quiet side. Not that all Carmelites are on the quiet side. We certainly are not, but I was, and still am really, in a lot of ways. Um, it was just, I kind of tell the story that my folks, my parents, were very heavily into the charismatic movement, I say. And they were very active in that movement. And my mom and dad, even as I started as a Carmelite, my mom and dad were constantly trying to kind of convert me to the charismatics. It's a wonderful movement. It serves many, many people, but it didn't serve me at all.
Mhm.
And I just had to, be honest with them and say, it's just not me, I totally respect what you're doing. And in the end, I think they were very proud that I followed my own path and that I was able to contribute in, any way that I could. But I think it just has helped me, it's not that I guess being a Carmelite, I will say, is like breathing. It's not anything separate from my life. It's the way I address my life. It's the way I address people. It's the way I interact with others. I hope. So I just think it just becomes it's just in your fiber. It's in your DNA. So I just think, and that's one thing that we do tell people that are looking into the Carmelites that eventually, maybe not when they're first start, but eventually, it will become like breathing. It will just be who you are, and it's a beautiful gift to find that because, as I said earlier, there are a lot of people that are seeking for things, and frankly, they just never really find it for whatever reason. But when you do find it, when you're accepted into a family like the Carmelites, it's life changing. It really is.
I think a common theme I hear in answer to that question, and I think I just heard it from you, is that you don't learn to be a Carmelite, you discover that you have always been a Carmelite.
100%. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I remember Father Pat McMahon. He did a tape for us, and we still use it for our discussion groups, who are groups of people that want to eventually become a Lay Carmelite community. It's called
Hmm.
9 Themes of Carmelite Spirituality. You're
Hmm.
familiar with that, I'm sure.
Hmm.
You've copied enough tapes for us. Oh, I date myself, because it's not tapes anymore, right?
That's right. Yes, yes. I
But,
still say to my son, can we videotape that tonight?
right. No, we can't. Yeah. Um, I'll never forget. And this is paraphrasing, but He says, Carmel is an 800-year-old tradition and you will never change it. But if you're lucky, it will change you. And that is the truth.
Hmm. Very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. He is he's one of the names, Patrick McMahon, Jack Welsh,
Mm,
that will be so missed for that wisdom that was in them.
yeah.
So
Huge losses, both of them. But
yes,
I mean, we have their works. I mean, that
yes,
will live on forever. So we're
yes,
very fortunate there.
yes. So, all right. Well, I would thank you for your time. Thank you for
Sure.
sharing those stories
Mhm.
and the information about the ministry.
You're
I certainly will
welcome.
share up throughout. I'll have the website and any resources, how they can get a hold of the office, Lay Carmelite Office in Darien if they're interested. And then from the website, of course, they can find local communities and regionals if they're interested in reaching out. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate
Oh,
you
sure.
sharing the personal stories. That's very powerful.
Oh, that's probably more than anybody ever wanted to know about Cindy Perazzo, but it is my story.
Yes, yes. No, but I think that's what people do want to hear. I think that they
Yeah.
want that's because that is Carmel. The administrative bits have to happen in every order, and that all
Mhm.
has to happen.
Right.
But yeah, hearing in everything you said, Carmel being present. I think that's important for people to hear and see. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Good to see
All
you.
right, all right.
Happy
Good to see you.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Bye bye, Cindy.
Bye bye.
Bye.